Go see the big lie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It's Wednesday, Hump Day, Don't You Ever Crump Day, 14th of May, 2025. And as always, taking the mainstream media, the legacy media to task because of their subterfuge and propaganda. Guess what?
You won't be trusted anymore.
All right, welcome to this edition of the WTF Reports. I'm your host, Dave vonKleist. And yes, history is being made. And by the way, I do want to mention that this broadcast is brought to you in part by the Wave Watch. If you haven't checked it out, you don't know what you're missing. I just got the new updated version of the Wave Watch 2.0, and it's smaller and it's easier to navigate, and it's got more frequencies and it's more comfortable. You got to check this thing out, folks. Frequency is everything. That's what Tesla told us. And Royal Raymond Rife was working with frequencies and found out that frequencies would help cells either proliferate and flourish, or those frequencies could also damage bacteria and viruses. There's all kinds of revelations coming out about frequencies. And sound is everything. As a matter of fact, that's how God spoke the world into existence. And God said this, and God said that. Anyway, check out the Wave Watch, folks. If you go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and click on the advertisers or the sponsors page, take you right down there. You can find out all about the Wave Watch and do your own research. I'm not blowing smoke, folks. Anyway, okay, so much stuff is going on around the world, and this is history-making stuff. Trump is, of course, over in the Middle East right now. He left Saudi Arabia, and I believe he's in Syria right now. And he's going to be going to Turkey, I understand, and have a eyeball-to-eyeball meeting with Zelensky and Putin. And this may bring the Ukraine conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, to an end. Of course, there are those people out there that don't want that to happen. No, we can't have peace. No, peace is bad. Peace is really bad. That's what they want you to think anyway. But as a matter of fact, I have a song. I'll play that in a little bit. It's just so applicable to what's going on today. All right, so where do we start? Well, first off, as I just mentioned, Trump is on his Middle Eastern tour right now, and he has basically, he's turned his back on Benjamin Netanyahu. Wow, that's so much stuff is going on. He cut off his communication with Bibi, and he also is refusing communication from domestic Zionist entities, people like Mark Levin on the Fox radio network, and also Mike Huckabee, Zionist Christian, former governor of Arkansas. What is going on? How is it? Now, Trump has done a bunch of things, okay? And it's not just Trump. Congress actually blocked a $17 million payment to Israel. Now, up to this point, the Congress has been sending millions and millions and billions of dollars over to Israel. But all of a sudden, that gravy train is being cut off. Not only that, but there's the possibility that Trump may withhold military aid to Israel. Now, what does this mean? This is, this is big stuff. Now, just in the past few days, Trump negotiated with Hamas and got the one American hostage released. Didn't do anything for the Israeli hostages. He said that's up to Bibi Netanyahu. He's got to straighten his own stuff out. So the point is that, like I said, he cuts off communication to Netanyahu. The Congress has cut off payments to Israel. He's cut off communication with Mark Levin, Mike Huckabee, and more and more people are starting to say, hey, wait a second, this whole unholy alliance that we've got with Israel, it's really coming home to roost. And I've got several different clips that I want to play for you, because that's what I do here. I'm here with the audio receipts, and I remind you, this is not, it doesn't make any difference what I believe. Doesn't make any difference what you believe. What matters is what they believe. And when I say they, I mean they, the movers, the shakers, the policymakers in this world. So let's take a walk down some of the revelations that have gone on for the past several days. This isn't going on over weeks. This is going on over days. Now, people all over the world are starting to wake up to this. As a matter of fact, Ursula von der Leyen, she is the European Commission president of the European Commission. She made a very inflammatory statement, and it's really got a lot of Europeans and Americans pretty ticked off. Okay, give this a listen. Here it is.
Ursula von der Leyen said this.
Europe is the values of the Talmud.
Europe does not have the values of the Talmud. This is what the Talmud says. Gittin 57a. Jesus is in hell being boiled in a pot of poop. Yes, it actually says this. Go ahead and look it up. Shabbath 116a. Jews must destroy the books of the Christians, meaning the Bible, to destroy the Bible. Yalka 245c says that the extermination of the Christians is a necessary sacrifice. Now imagine if Christians said all the same things about the Jews. And you're telling me that Europe has the values of the Talmud. No, it will never will. And remember what the Talmudic Bolsheviks did to the Christians. Between 40 to 60 million Christians were put in concentration camps and killed in the gulags. Talmudic Jewish supremacist Bolsheviks did that. Ursula is a traitor to Christianity. She is a traitor to Europe. And I am disgusted, but very shocked that she would even say something like that. We need to throw all the Zionists, not just out of Europe, but out of the Middle East and also America. This is getting too absurd.
Yes, it is. Now, there's something going on around the world called the noticing, and that's what's going on right now. People are actually starting to take a look at history, take a look at these quote-unquote scriptures, and now we're not just talking about the Talmud, we're talking about the Bible as well. Because, I mean, what it boils down to is a holy war. You know, values that are expressed in one book versus values expressed in another book. Now, again, I didn't make this stuff up. That gentleman was just quoting from the Talmud. And I've gone through and I've checked it out, and yeah, he's right. He's absolutely right. That is written. I didn't say it. You didn't say it. It's written. But anyway, he just referred to what happened during the Bolshevik Revolution. Well, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, he wrote in his writings. I've got there was somebody here that was narrating this. This had to do with the Bolshevik Revolution, and you might want to pay attention to the words. Here it is.
You must understand, the leading Bolsheviks who took over Russia were not Russians. They hated Russians. They hated Christians. Driven by ethnic hatred, they tortured and slaughtered millions of Russians without a shred of human remorse. The October Revolution was not what you call in America the Russian Revolution. It was an invasion and conquest over the Russian people. More of my countrymen suffered horrific crimes at the blood-stained hands than any people or nation ever suffered in the entirety of human history. It cannot be understated. Bolshevism was the greatest human slaughter of all time. The fact that most of the world is ignorant of this reality is proof that the global media itself is in the hands of the perpetrators. We cannot state that all Jews are Bolsheviks, but without Jews, there would be no Bolshevism. For a Jew, nothing is more insulting than the truth. The blood-matted Jewish terrorists murdered 66 million in Russia from 1918 to 1957. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Nobel Prize-winning novelist, historian, and victim of Jewish Bolshevism.
That's history, folks. I didn't make that up. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote it himself. Yes. And, you know, they always say, oh, the worst Holocaust in history happened in Germany. 6 million, 6 million, 6 million. That number over and over and over again. And yet in the Bolshevik Revolution, 60 million. And anyway, there was so many, the estimates are between 50 and 66 million. I mean, it's just so many people you can't even count it. Oh, yes, but the Holocaust was the worst, horrendous, murder in history. Well, history is written by those who hang the heroes. Yeah, it's called Victory Justice. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you. Again, these are not my words, folks. I'm just putting it out there. Now, there is a historian. He's an Israeli historian, very well respected in Israel, and his name is Avi Schlaim. And he basically, in an interview, shared this. Listen up.
Zionism is racism. Israel cannot be both. Israel is either a racist Jewish state or it's a democratic state for everybody. And that's what I would like Israel to be. I'd like a democratic solution, one state with equal rights for all its inhabitants. Your organization, Human Rights Watch, issued a report last year about Israel, and the conclusion was it is an apartheid state. And there are 4 major human rights groups in the last 2 years who issued similar reports, reached the same conclusion. Israel is an apartheid state. So apartheid is racism. Apartheid is discrimination. But Israel is the only member of the United Nations that I know which is officially racist. And I say this because of the July 2018 nation-state law, which says the Jews have a unique right to self-determination in Israel. Unique means exclusive.
Yes.
It means Arabs have no right to self-determination. It means even if Arabs became a majority, they would still have no right to self-determination. So most certainly Zionism is a racist ideology, and it is largely responsible for the Nakba that has unfolded throughout the last century and continues today.
That's right. Zionism is racism. That's I've been saying that since day one. And the folks out there that are still banging their fist on the desk and saying October 6th. Yes, Hamas went in there and slaughtered all these people. Well, guess what? Now more Israelis, IDF soldiers, are coming forward and saying, no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And again, I invite you to do a search, go to Rumble, and look for the documentary. The attack on the Hamas attack on October 6th was 100% an inside job. You need to see that documentary. And that's not the only one. There's another website called stopworldcontrol.com. And if you go to stopworldcontrol.com/Israel, it'll bring you up to a documentary that will also share with you a lot of the revelations about October 6th. It ain't what they've been telling you on the mainstream media, which is why I begin every program, telling the legacy media, the mainstream media, you won't be trusted anymore because you've been pumping propaganda, horse hockey, bullcrap, whatever you want to call it, and they say, oh, they mix it in with some truth, but my philosophy here is that truth is a constant. It's an absolute. It's either the truth or it isn't. You can't have most of the truth. Okay? It's like being mostly pregnant. You can't be mostly pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. Same thing with the truth. And there are people who will twist and turn and, do everything they can to obfuscate and distract away from the real facts. They'll put in some of the good facts, but that they won't give you the whole truth. And that's the problem I've got. Now we can expect that. Yours truly has been screaming about the media's propagandas for 30 years. That song that I use, You Won't Be Trusted, this one here. We can't wait for you to start to be honest. We can't wait for you to start to be true. We can't wait for you to finally discover that the things you did can be done to you. Okay, you got the idea, right? I mean, that's why I wrote that song 30 flaming years ago. And we can expect the subterfuge and propaganda and the lies to be coming at you from CBS, NBC, NBC, CBS, ABC, what is it, CNN, MSNBC. Yeah, but, now we've got these conservative news networks that have popped up in the past decade. You got Newsmax, you've got One America News, you've got News Nation, you've got Real America's Voice, and they're all telling you most of the truth, most of it, but there are certain things that they will not discuss. And you can't, of course, Israel is like a holy subject. You don't talk about Israel because if you do, you're a racist, you're an anti-Semite, you're this and that. Boy, they have used that anti-Semite thing for decades to diffuse and to basically distract away from, really horrible things that they've been doing over there. And anyway, like I said, this whole thing, it seems to me that they are generating a holy war. And it's not like it isn't written in the Bible. In the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 9, it says, and I quote, "I know thy words and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." That's in the Bible, folks. I didn't say that. That was Jesus, Yeshua, who said that. Of course, there's a lot of people that just say, no, I don't want to hear that. They close their eyes, they plug their ears, going, la, 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 I don't want to do it. And then it's repeated in Revelation 3:9. "Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie." Right there. Right there. So all you good Christians out there, you claim to be a Zionist Christian? Zionism is racism. What if we had the Zionist states of America? I've mentioned this before. What if we were to take some of the states and turn them into the Zionist state of California? Okay, so all the Catholics, you get to go to California. If you're not Catholic, you have to leave California and leave everything that you own behind and let the Catholics have it. And if you protest or try to stop them, they get to kill you. That's what it is to be in a Zionist state. Okay, in New York State, we'll make that the LGBTQ plus XYZ LMNOP, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. We'll make that that's the Zionist state of New York. And if you're not part of that group, you got to leave, and you got to leave everything that you own behind, and if you protest, they get to kill you. That's what Zionism is. At least that's the way I understand it. I mean, I go by deeds, not words. I watch what's going on in Israel, and glorioski, golly gosh, that's exactly what they've been doing since 1948. So don't give me this crap that this whole thing, the war started on October 6th. No, it didn't. It's been going on for generations and generations and generations. And now, finally, people are starting to see it. They're starting to understand. They're starting to get it. As a matter of fact, Judge Napolitano and Jeffery Sachs were having a very interesting conversation about the situation that Bibi Netanyahu is finding himself in because the world is noticing. That's the word that's being used all over the world. People are starting to notice the real history of the Bolshevik revolution. They're starting to notice what the Ashkenazis are, the Khazarians. They're starting to notice the history. They're starting to notice the Talmudic Jews are different than those who follow the Torah. Anyway, here's Judge Napolitano and Jeffery Sachs. Wait till you hear this one. Here it is.
President Trump is going to call for a state of Palestine as a UN member state. That's the breakthrough.
Now, this was just released.
Okay, did you hear that? If Trump is calling for a Palestinian state, that just blows Netanyahu and his entire effort right out of the water.
A few minutes ago, Professor Sachs, from a closed session of the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. You're probably familiar with their committee structure. Prime Minister Netanyahu, quote, this is stated in Hebrew, but we used AI to translate it. "I think we will need to wean ourselves off American military aid," close quote. If he said that, what does that tell you, Professor Sachs?
Well, that would indicate that he recognizes that the U.S. is going to pursue a different foreign policy, not to support his wars. This would be wonderful news. It might suggest that he has the advance notice that President Trump is going to call for a state of Palestine as a UN member state. That's the breakthrough that we need above all. If it happens, and if this quote suggests that, of course, we're reading a lot into it, but if it suggests that, that is phenomenal news. It's interesting, by the way, we should understand how many foreign policy initiatives President Trump is engaged in just this moment that look positive right now. And this is astounding. First is Ukraine. I think he is maneuvering to get that war ended, and he's doing it very successfully. With the U.S.-China today, the agreement to roll back the tariffs that went to the stratosphere a few weeks ago, this is very good news. With the president intervening in the India-Pakistan battle of the last few days to bring together a ceasefire, with the president overriding Waltz, apparently, and certainly Netanyahu to say, no, we're not going to have wars with Iran. All of these are peace-seeking initiatives. It's amazing. And if it's true, President Trump will make history. It's very close. He needs to understand and really needs to see that if he says two-state solution, no nonsense, this is the real thing, all his other goals will be achievable. And that is a remarkable fact.
But think of the ramifications of this quote, assuming that Netanyahu said it. I think we will need to wean ourselves off American military aid. Where are they going to go? Who else is going to give them what the U.S. gave them?
I'll tell you where they would have to go. They would have to go to normalcy, to diplomacy, to peace. There is no military alternative for them other than the U.S. And if President Trump finally stops the U.S. backing of these military adventures, they have no other place to go. What they will have to do is wean themselves off of a 30-year addiction to war.
That's right. A 30-year addiction to war. Interesting. I wrote a song about that many years ago. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love, doesn't it? Yeah, I changed the chords around so I wouldn't get in any trouble. But anyway, here it is.
You're making bucks when people die. You're preaching peace, but we know that you lie. You're sending troops way on over there. Their lives destroyed, but you don't even care. Your every deed is based on greed. Your country cries, but you won't heed. Your bank account is your one concern. How much you make, how much you earn. Yeah, sitting on a fortune, but you're lasting for more. Oh yeah. Sending all our military off to
Yeah, you're addicted to war, and it's not just Bibi Netanyahu, it's the entire military-industrial complex. And I wonder how many of these generals and military personnel, how many members of Congress, how many members of the Senate, how many people that are involved in one way or the other in foreign policy are affected by bribery, coercion, blackmail. Bribery, coercion, and blackmail. Those are the three magic words that make this world go round. And Jeffery Sachs, bless his heart, he is an absolutely brilliant guy. And he's also very, very well educated. And he put the puzzle pieces together. And again, I can't help but think this is a guy named, let me see, what's his name? Cyrus Jansen. He was interviewing Jeffery Sachs, and let me see if I can get this clip to come up here. Here we go.
Does Israel have us bought out? Are politicians bought out? Do they just hold too much control in Washington, D.C.?
Of course, AIPAC has bought out the Congress, but it's quite interesting, by the way. AIPAC spends maybe this year a few $100 million, and then it gets for Israel tens of billions of dollars, and then it causes the United States to go to war for trillions of dollars. In other words, one thing that I really don't like about our Congress is they sell themselves for nothing. In other words, they've sold American foreign policy for a pittance. AIPAC has the best deal in the world. They multiply their returns 100-fold, 1,000-fold. That's ridiculous. Okay, if AIPAC had to spend trillions of dollars to get trillions of dollars of U.S. spending, it wouldn't happen. Right. But they spend a small amount and they get the trillions. That's the game. It's remarkable. I just don't understand these congressmen really set such a low price for selling American foreign policy.
That's a good insight. I mean, that's the best ROI I've ever heard of. Spend a couple hundred million and get trillions back in return. I mean, it shows you the sad state of the political system inside the U.S. and how corrupt that really is.
Yep, how corrupt it really is. And you can go to the website Track AIPAC and you can look up your congressperson and see how much money they have received from AIPAC. And I remind you that JFK back in 1963, it wasn't called AIPAC. It was called the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs. And JFK wanted the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs to register under FARA, F-A-R-A, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And they would have had to register as a foreign agent. Oh, they didn't want that to happen. Well, guess what? A couple months later, kaboom, JFK was gone. And they changed their name to AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. I believe that's what it is anyway. Anyway, yeah, we got revelations that are happening. Anyway, we'll get right back to it in a minute here, but I want to open up the phone lines. I'd love to hear what you have to say about Trump's second capitulation tour that's going on right now. And by the way, if you haven't seen the documentary The Greatest Show on Earth, you need to go see that. You need to go pull that up. It's available on Rumble, BitChute, YouTube. The Greatest Show on Earth. Check it out. That has to do in 2017 when Trump made his first capitulation tour. If you haven't seen it, you really need to see that. Anyway, I'm opening up the phone lines. If you want to, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this second capitulation tour. 215-867-8255. Again, that's 215-867-8255. Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. Made in America, the Get More Tank formula is used by trucking companies and heavy industry. Now the Get More Tank formula is available to you. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers emissions, and you'll feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, and blowers. Hey, if you got an engine, then Get More Tank. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, painters, and lawn service companies, Get More Tank will save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you're an owner-operator running your big rig around the town or across the country, Get More Tank will save you money too. If you're a farmer, all of your equipment can use Get More Tank. A 5-pack on sale at GetMoreTank.com for just $22.22 plus shipping. Use the promo code REDPILL101 and get 10% off. Save your money, save your engine, save the earth at GetMoreTank.com. Get More Tank is EPA registered, doesn't void warranties, results vary. And you can get more tank if you go to our website. Go, run screaming to your computer. Go to the WTFreports.com, click on the sponsors page, and check out Get More Tank. If you go to their website, they have all the technical data there to show you exactly how and why that stuff works, why you will experience between 15 and 20% increase in your mileage, why your car will run cleaner, and why it'll run better. So this is a no-lose situation. This is a win-win across the board. Get More Tank is good stuff, and it works. So please go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and Get More Tank. And while you're at it, hey, you might want to pick up the WTF Reports coffee mug or T-shirt or baseball cap. Help us grow, folks. That's what we need to do. Spend your time sharing and liking and subscribing. If you're listening on BitChute or on Rumble or YouTube, help us to grow. We got to get these words out there. And again, this is my job to scream from the rooftops. I was charged with that many, many years ago when I read Ezekiel chapter 33, and it just hit me between the eyes. And I always subscribe to the philosophy that if you become aware of a lie and you do nothing to expose the lie, you become part of the lie. And I got to look myself in the mirror every day and know that I'm standing in the light and I'm telling the truth and I'm doing the best that I can. So anyway, that said, again, the phone number here is 215-867-8255. And let me see, I've got another clip here that I want to share with you. The whole world, by the way, that last clip that I just played having to do, Jeffery Sachs was saying, hey, look, if the United States is going to turn its back on Israel, on baby Netanyahu, and it sure as heck is looking like they're doing that, because the whole world is pissed off at Israel and the United States because the United States has been an enabler. We've been sending them money and military hardware and basically turning a blind eye to the absolute annihilation. It's not just genocide. It's extermination of an entire people in Palestine, regardless what you feel about Muslims. You just don't do that. You don't do that. But Netanyahu does it, and his cabinet does it. They are an extreme right-wing organization. And, it's funny because, we do hear in the news about, right-wing extremist Christians, okay? Or we hear about extremist Muslims, but you never hear about extremist Jews. Well, you know what? There are a lot of Jews all over the world right now that are absolutely appalled and disgusted with what's been going on in Israel. That's why they're protesting in the streets in Tel Aviv. And American Jews are very, very upset with Bibi Netanyahu and what they're doing. And it's amazing because, when you've got a whole bunch of Jewish people that are out there screaming against Israel, and then people say, oh, you're an anti-Semite. It doesn't work anymore. Oh, my gosh. It's crazy. But, the whole world is starting to see this, and, they're turning on Israel. And it's about flaming time. And again, I don't have anything against Jews. 99% of the Jews in this world, they're not following what's going on in world affairs. They're just like a whole bunch of Christians. They don't want to listen to the news. It's too depressing. Oh, I don't want to, it's boring. Or it's this and that. But they're paying attention to the basketball playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs and the baseball season and the newest movies that just released on Netflix, or whatever's going on in their community. They're not paying attention to world affairs. So you can't blame these people. I don't care if they're Jews or Christian or what have you. I mean, they've completely disengaged from the world, and they have no clue about what's going on. So you can't condemn them. And besides, the old school Torah Jews are that's Old Testament. The Old Testament and the Torah are like hand in hand. So, Christians and Jews basically share this. We're all, descendants of Abraham. Okay, so, I mean, we're all supposed to be on the same side here, but there was an offshoot there. That's where the Talmud comes from. And they had nothing to do with Jews. They really didn't. They were Eastern Europeans, and they were more brutal than the Mongols. Anyway, that's a little bit more history that you might want to check into. Okay, well, like I said, there are a lot of people here that are starting to participate in the noticing, and things are turning around. They really are. And if Trump is going to recognize Palestine as a free state, that completely blows Bibi Netanyahu and his entire regime out of the water. But people are turning on Israel. Here's a gentleman who was sharing a few headlines from the New York Times, the Jerusalem Post, and it really makes us take notice. Listen up.
Can you see what I can see? According to Pew Research Center's new report this year, 53% of U.S. voters now dislike Israel.
53%?
3 years ago, it was 32%. Also, according to James...
Okay, I got to stop that. Pew Research, 53% are opposed to Israel, opposed to 32% last year. Kaboom!
Zogby's poll this year, 38% of Republicans agreeing with the International Criminal Court's finding on Israel, which Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, and also the arrest warrant. 38% of Republicans, and only 36% of them disagree. So there are 2% more now. Can you see what I can see? The US government had agreement with the Houthis that the US militaries will no longer attack on Houthis as long as they stop attacking American ships.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. Do you hear what that means? Okay, if Trump is negotiating with the Houthis and say, look, you don't mess with us, we won't mess with you. That's not in the plan that Bibi Netanyahu had. So things are turning around.
Throughout the negotiation, until the agreement, Israel had nothing to do with this. By that means, if the Houthis attacks Israel, the US will not respond. At the 5th of this month, the Houthi declares that Yemenis will work to impose a comprehensive air blockade on Israel by targeting the country's airports and ask all the airlines to stop flying to Israel for their own safety. Imagine how this is going to happen to Israel's economy. There are also reports saying that Trump is very disappointed at Netanyahu and he wants to deal with the Middle East without Israel. And on today, the New York Times declared that this Israeli government is not our ally.
Ooh.
Not only that, the Jerusalem Post come up with an article saying that Donald Trump and his government is about to recognize a Palestinian state. Like, can you see what I can see? That there is a major policy change that is happening right now in the US. That was just like the last stage of the apartheid South Africa. Can you see what I can see? That a slogan I'm about to say is about to turn into a reality. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. And to find out that the Yemenis are going to put an aerial blockade around Israel, and meanwhile, the United States is standing down. I mean, like I just said, a $17 million payment that was earmarked to go to Israel was blocked by the Congress. So what's going on? I can't remember that ever happening. I mean, whatever Israel wants, Israel always gets. And we've been financing them for decades and decades and decades. Back in the 80s, Netanyahu even made the statement that we have the American Congress in our pocket. Something to that effect. And that's true. They've been paying off Congress for years and years and years. And as I mentioned before, there's another tool that they use to control Congress and the Senate and the judges. What could that methodology be?
Bribery, coercion, blackmail.
Blackmail. That's the biggie. That's the biggie right there. Because we all know that all this information about the Jeffrey Epstein files, we all know that that's being held back. Same thing with the P. Diddy files. Same thing with the Hunter Biden laptop. Same thing with Anthony Weiner's laptop. What is on these computers that is so damaging that they can't release it? It's called bribery, folks. And I said it on the show the other day, that I have a feeling that the release of the Epstein files, if they were to actually release the names of the customers, the consumers of this heinous, disgusting, vile, evil, barbaric action of sacrificing children, drinking their blood, raping them and stuff like that, if you still don't think that that's happening, raise your hand and slap yourself with it. And if there are very prominent individuals, and there are, I mean, we're talking the likes of Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, many, many other world leaders, politicians, and then, of course, there are actors and rock stars and all kinds of very, 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 very high-profile world leaders and influencers. If their names were to be released, all heck would break loose. I mean, I do see that as a threat to national security. Maybe that's why they're not releasing this. Because, I mean, think about it. I mean, I wonder what percentage of Congress is being held. If it's not just the money from AIPAC, what if they've got themselves, unfortunately, stuck on a video doing something really horrible to a kid? They don't want that information out there. Of course not. So maybe this is why Dan Bongino was saying that, gosh, we all know Epstein was doing these, recording these people, making these videos, and we have no idea which Middle Eastern country might be blackmailing them. Come on, Danny. You know doggone well, exactly what country is controlling that. Ghislaine Maxwell, let me remind you, her dad was Robert Maxwell, and he was a Mossad agent. So don't tell me that you don't know which Middle Eastern country has those videotapes. Of course Israel has them. And maybe with this action that Trump is taking now, snubbing Bibi Netanyahu, going on a Middle Eastern peace tour and not including Israel, maybe this will prompt Bibi to release some of those files. I don't know, but I do know that the truth has to come out, no matter how painful it is. Because what's on the other side will be a whole lot better, because we'll actually be able to live free and in truth. But I said many, many years ago, when I first started my talk radio career, I said, folks, this country is in a world of hurt. And we either have to have a knockdown, drag-em-out revolution, or we're going to have to sit on our butts and wait for it to collapse under the weight of its own corruption. And maybe it'll be a combination of both. Maybe we're watching the collapse. Maybe we're watching the destruction of the old guard. I certainly hope so. Because everything that we've been living through in this country has been a real mess. I mean, and it's so many different fronts. I mean, look at the economy. Right now, the U.S. dollar is on the ropes. And I reported yesterday that the Operation Sandman, do you know what that is? You got to look it up, do some research. If all these countries all of a sudden drop the U.S. dollar and take their bonds, and say, okay, we want all of our money, it would just collapse the U.S. dollar and the Federal Reserve. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe we have to go through some real difficult times in a transition to get away from the international multinational bankers, the central banks. I don't know how that would work out. But, I mean, we can't stay enslaved by the bankers forever. And they are ruthless. Yes, we know that they think nothing of human life. And they would collapse an entire country to save themselves. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's what that capitulation tour in 2017 was all about. I mean, Jan Helper Hayes was making the rounds. And, of course, she is... is associated with the U.S. Space Force. And in several interviews, she said that the gold had been repatriated from the Vatican. She said it was 650 plane loads of gold to get all the gold out of the Vatican. That's a lot of gold. I did a little research. If they were going to put gold on transport planes like a C-130 or a C-17 or something like that, that's between, depending on which plane, between 30 and 50,000 tons that they can transport on one plane. So if she said 650 planes, good goobly-goo, that's a lot of gold. And if that was repatriated to the United States, well, maybe we will be looking at going back to a gold standard. And that would not be a bad thing. That's what JFK was trying to do. He wanted to do away with the Federal Reserve by releasing $450 million in U.S. notes that were backed by the U.S. Treasury. And, of course, we know what happened to JFK. There were several reasons why they wanted to take him out. I already mentioned what happened when he wanted to have the Zionists register with FARA. They didn't like that. They didn't like the idea that he issued the United States notes. No, that was not in their plan. They didn't like the idea that he said that he was going to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and cast them to the wind. No, they didn't like that either. They didn't like the idea that JFK was talking about the secret societies. And you can look any one of these quotes up. Again, I challenge you. You want to get mad at me? Just fine. That's the easy way out. Do your own research and follow up with some of the stuff I'm sharing with you, and you find out that I'm not making this stuff up. So, the world is going through some very serious changes. And as far as this tour in the Middle East that Trump is on right now, I don't know how that's going to work out. But anyway, we got a caller here in the last minutes of the show. Who do we have there?
Are you there?
Yeah, you're on the air. Who do we have? Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Wow. You don't even screen the calls, huh?
Nope. Going to put you right on.
No complaints. Okay, this is Melissa from Maryland. I have a question for you that shouldn't shock you, but everybody's going to have to sit down for this.
Okay.
Tell me whether or not was JFK assassinated, or was that a big hoax?
Wait a minute. Would you say that again? You sound a little muffled. Ask that question again.
Hold on. Okay. Let me see if that was JFK. What happened to JFK a big hoax? Did he leave the country after what happened to him in the 1960s?
So you're asking me if JFK is still alive?
No, I don't expect that. But I'm asking if, what happened was a big hoax, because one of the stories that is circulating is that what happened to him was a big hoax, and that he left the country afterwards.
I have heard that in the past, that, JFK was not killed in that assassination attempt. But I don't believe that. I believe he was assassinated. Now, what happened as far as how that assassination occurred, that remains to be seen. Okay, now it's come. More and more people now are starting to realize that Lee Harvey Oswald was not the lone guy involved with this. More and more revelations are coming out. But no, I don't believe he was whisked away to some other country. I do believe that he was killed in that assassination. That's my own personal belief.
So you don't believe that he disappeared to Russia afterwards, because that's one of the stories that was circulating, was that there was, a replacement in the plane, and that whoever was in, whoever was in the container didn't look a thing like him, and that he was whisked away off to Russia. That's one of the stories that's floating around.
Well, I don't believe that, but I do believe the fact that we know that there is a lot of propaganda and misinformation that's put out by both sides, conservatives and liberals, Republicans and Democrats. And there's a lot of false trails that are thrown out there, and unfortunately, some of that stuff, a lot of people just jump on and they swallow that without doing any, using common sense and thinking it through and doing some research. But no, I do believe that JFK was indeed killed in that assassination. I do not believe that he was whisked off to some other country. But anyway, no, I appreciate the thought. I appreciate, you questioning. That's a good thing that you're questioning authority. But, we have to be really careful because there's a lot of, like I said, we all know that the liberals are putting out all kinds of misinformation and lies. They've been doing that for a long time. But we would be silly hearts not to realize that the conservative right has been doing pretty much the same thing. So, we are in an information war right now. There's a global psychological operation going on as all of these global changes are happening. So the whole plan is to keep everybody, confused and fearful and not sure about what's going on because it has a tendency to make people immobile. They basically don't know which way to go, so they don't go anywhere. So anyway, I do appreciate the call and I appreciate your question. All I ask is that we all have to use a bit of discernment and common sense and do some research. So anyway, I thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was an interesting call. All right. Boy, I just look at the clock, but that time goes by so quickly. Well, I want to thank you all for your listenership, as always. And again, I respectfully and humbly request that you visit our website, TheWTFReports.com, and do some business with our advertisers. And again, I want to re-mention that I just got my Wave Watch 2.0, the second generation of the Wave Watch. And this thing is amazing. I mean, I was impressed with the first Wave Watch. This one's even nicer. It's got more frequencies. It's smaller. It's easier to navigate. And these frequencies, like I said, I'm just getting started with this one, so I will be letting you know how it seems to work out. But anyway, so go to our website, check out the Wave Watch, and you can also do your own research. You can find out that that those frequencies really do work. Just go to YouTube and type in Wave Watch. There's a lot of information there about that. Okay, that said, it's going to wrap it up for this Wednesday, Hump Day, Don't You Ever Crump Day. And I invite you to join me tomorrow, same time, same place, same station. And if you listen to the archives on the WTF Reports, please share it with your friends. Say, hey, look, there's some really interesting information being broadcast. You really need to hear it, and I'd appreciate it. All right, that said, I'm out of here. God bless you all. Stay safe, and above all, stay free. And I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you all.
Watch the roaches take fire.